Speaking about FDI, uncertainty still remains worldwide. We still face, well, roughly the same challenges what we used to have about a year ago in healthcare, in economics, but something is moving, progressing in a positive way as well. My first question is, you've been doing this job for years, for countries, for corporations, for companies, local, I mean Georgians, and foreign companies and corporations as well. How the world has changed in the field of attracting investments? Is the structure, relations, methods changed a bit, or maybe changed dramatically? I don't know. I need your voice about this, and then we will speak definitely about some details for Georgia.
Georgi, thank you very much, first of all, approaching
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, Keti.
and talking on one of my favorite topics, because
Indeed.
we all know how much importance of FDI is, especially for a country like Georgia, and how much we have to really work to get FDI in our country. I have to admit, last year when pandemic started, and if I would say a year ago,
Okay.
exactly at the same time, the whole world is in panic. And nobody, of course, had time or even eagerness to do the foreign direct investments outside.
Does this panic remain?
No, that's my point. This panic is not.
Oh, it's been eliminated.
It's eliminated because everyone understands that the pandemic is going to be with us even in the next few years.
Correct.
So, of course, in that sense, we have to adapt and we have to move on. So, a year ago, I agree, there was a worldwide panic.
Emotional shock.
Emotional shock. But that lasted maybe a few months. But from last year, from summer, and especially from September last year, companies are becoming even more motivated and more eager to find the new opportunities to invest. So what are the companies doing? First of all, they all understood how much they need to diversify.
Okay.
If there is a strong companies who are investing in real estate or hotel industry, we see the trend that they are now investing in hospitals or in IT technologies. But the eagerness to invest, to put money, not only in their countries but to other countries, has remained kind of a priority. It's a natural, yes. The nature of the money, nature of the human being. We all need to adapt and move on, and it's definitely not a good idea to be stuck and wait for something. And in that sense, I already saw huge investments happening worldwide, and companies traveling even already to see the investment opportunities, to check the investment opportunities. And from the other side, it's a quiet time, right? All companies suddenly have now more time to think, to do feasibilities, so they are using this time efficiently to see what are the other business opportunities, what are the opportunities and where they can invest.
Which personally for you means that they're still investing in so-called traditional directions, or I don't know, priorities, investment priorities for them, but there is a bit change that their portfolio has been diversified, their vision has been diversified, and that's a result of pandemic.
Yes, I see, as an example, to give you an example, just in my recent trip in Dubai, DP World, which is the largest port operator and the owner of the free industrial zones worldwide, not only in Middle East, they are now investing in healthcare. But they are still continuing investing in the port infrastructure because that remains high priority. But they have, this pandemic gave them also time to think and check the other sectors and other opportunities, And now we see they are diversifying their portfolio and investing not only healthcare, many other directions. And before that, probably they would never had time to think about the new strategy of the company. And my point is that it's actually one of the best times to approach the companies. They have time for you. They have enough time to meet you, to talk to you, to work with you, to check the opportunities, to discuss. While in old times it was everything was very limited, to find a time for meeting. You were
their interests were also limited.
Yeah, absolutely. Their interest, because they had like this path that you are going on. It was an ongoing process.
Did I get you correctly that diversification of the investment portfolio coming from the strategic institutional investors worldwide means definitely new opportunities, including for countries like we are,
Absolutely.
Georgia.
The companies are searching for new places. The companies are searching for new sectors. And companies, of course, I always say that the pandemic will show it's a time for reforms, because crisis shows you different options. The companies need to become more efficient, more, kind of it takes you out of your comfort zone. So that's the best time, actually, if you have any, potential to present, to display, to attract, and because it's going to be a disruption. The supply chains are changing. The way of doing business is changing. If there was a limitation of traveling, now you do everything online. So this is all, positiveness that maybe you can capitalize on that and use this as an opportunity.
Dubai Emirates was not the only place you visited, and our business community and our viewers and followers are very much aware about your permanent and constant contacts with global investors. What about Georgia? Where do we stand in these regards? My question is not going to a point how well we adapted through this pandemic situation. I'm still talking about the FDI. I'm talking about the problem of FDI even before the pandemic, and how flexible Georgia is to adopt SAP in this new world, new opportunities and new changes.
I have to admit again, the FDI strategy actually country was lacking even before pandemic.
Correct.
And we saw the immediate results. Even last year already we see the decreased number of the FDI.
Sure.
I usually say that sometimes numbers are high, sometimes they are low. It's okay as long as you see the diversified investors. If you see the new faces, or if you see some quality investors coming in. So the biggest problem usually is that in last few years we never saw a big new name, or even that doesn't matter, big new name. Just a new name, new people, new investors, because that's the key for the country, especially for a small country like Georgia. So that's number one issue.
Okay.
The second, in the first quarter of last year, we saw dramatic decrease of the investments, and that's the time when the pandemic still has not reached the the country or the world. So that already means, despite the pandemic, the decrease of investment was happening in the country. So we have to really ask, why did it happen? Of course, if you have also strategic projects, they never stop, despite that it's maybe they a little bit, slow down, but then they continue investment. So we never saw the rise of the investments in the second, third, or fourth quarter, and eventually we see a significant decrease of the FDI last year. Again, which shows that the government or we as a country did not have a right approach how to deal with existing investors who are in the country, or the newcomers with whom we had negotiations maybe to come into the country, to make them comfortable and feel safe that it's okay to invest, because again it's a worldwide issue, it's not only in the country. And last but not least, of course, everyone is watching how you are managing the pandemic. And while the world does not have the many success stories, we have few success stories in the world that we have to look after, because Georgia is a small country.
But did we capitalize on it?
No, we did not capitalize on that, unfortunately, and this is something that we need to capitalize. For a small country, it's much easier to manage pandemic rather than the big countries. And that's where I actually initially saw the opportunity that if we manage the pandemic well, if we create a right environment and approach the investors, Georgia could have had another amazing chance to attract both investors, tourists in the country, and to really capitalize on the environment.
You mentioned about strategic projects, ongoing interests. You personal friends, good friends of ours, of our countries, I mean Georgia, they're still on. They're quite active in the field of infrastructure projects coming in cooperation with governments, things like that. Ambassador of Sweden in Georgia, Sebastian Molineux, as a representative of the World Bank, they're still on. They are quite active. They are very much responsive. IFIs are investing in these directions. And it's just infrastructural projects together with the government.
I was here for the first time in September 2019, and it looked very different. And today we can celebrate the inauguration of the wastewater management treatment plant here in Tel Aviv. And for the people living in Tel Aviv, this is good news. This means that the wastewater no longer go untreated into the Alazani River. And when it comes to irrigation of different feeds, it means that you can use water that is no longer contaminated and polluted. I think for Sweden, we have been working with the World Bank in support of the Jordan government to realize this project. And Sweden put in around 8,000 euro in order for this program to happen. And so there's one wastewater treatment plant, the one that we are inaugurating here in Tel Aviv today. And there's another one ready in Skaltubo in Emirati region. And Sweden, for the cooperation when it comes to improving the environmental standards in accordance with the EU regulation, I think that is a very important area where we have been supported and worked with Georgia for many years, and we will continue to do so.
I am delighted to be here and to help open this wastewater treatment plant. With government's leadership from the Ministry of Regional Development and Infrastructure, support from the government of Sweden and the World Bank. The reason why I am so happy to be here, standing here today, is for two principal reasons. Number one, just 6 months ago, I was in Tel Aviv and I saw the sludge and the dredge flow openly through the streets, through the channels. I was also able to see how the same sludge and dredge was flowing into the beautiful Alazani River. With this new wastewater treatment plant, children and families will be able to walk by the channels and not be exposed to any health risks, and the environment will be protected because clean water will be flowing into the valuable and very important Alazani River moving forward.
This is a very good story.
Absolutely.
And fantastic response, but we both know that this is not enough. Not enough, we're not, diverting any compliance to Sebastian or Mr. Ambassador, no. But at the same time, something extraordinary should be done Absolutely. During this unprecedented period. Keti, we're talking a lot about extraordinary measures, what can be taken. In the same way, as you mentioned, in regards of FDI, what can be these extraordinary methods in attracting FDI?
First of all, we really need to think out of box, right? Again, this is something that as Georgia, a small country, small nation with limited resources, there is no conventional way of doing things. We really have to be more creative, more open-minded, and really have the thinking of
more crazy,
or more crazy even. You know, of course, there is one part which is fundamental in terms of stability, having the predictability, rule
stable
of law,
macroeconomic situation.
That's like I don't want to go into it.
It's like a Bible.
It's a Bible. We all know there is like written,
agree.
and we have to
no comment,
tackle this, and that's one approach. The second approach is more tactics and how you approach to the companies, and how you really put your personal, effort. And I'm here saying that in that sense we need to have a unified strategy, because at one point what we see that all the assets are on sale from Georgia. So if you look from outside, it looks like that the country is almost at the default. Why is everybody selling the assets? You know, and again, without having even a proper strategy. So it really needs that, you know, to business community also to think about this and to have a unified strategy how we are, you know, tackling these issues and how we are moving forward, and how we will have these joint efforts of in terms of attraction of FDI and how we support to each other. And that's, I really encourage the private sector to talk, and big businessmen especially, to talk together, because again, whatever you promote outside, the investors circle is very small. So at the end of the day, maybe everyone ends up to talk to the same person from different angles, and this is very key and important. But of course, from the ministry side, you know, usually attracting the investors, it takes 3 to 5 years to see the implemented projects on the ground. So if we don't see where is the pipeline, that doesn't mean that we don't have investors today. We won't have tomorrow and day after. And then if we don't start attracting them today, that means that our 3-year FDI statistics will be bad, and which reflects into less job. There will not be job opportunities. There will be less employment opportunities, and eventually it's going to affect the whole economy and the country. So here, my probably good advice is to be as proactive as possible, and we need a good success stories. Unfortunately, the recent, and I don't want to also go into details, and it's not our probably theme to now discuss, but whatever is happening with hydropower stations or large infrastructure, like, you know, everything affects the image of the country, because outside the details doesn't matter. Outside of the country, it is seen that the investor is failing to do the project, and overall, of course, it's not. Which is nearly billion. Yes, and this is overall a very negative impression of the country, and we also need to have as much success story as possible, and we need to talk about this. Who has invested in Georgia? Who made the money? Who is happy? You know, this word of mouth makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and right now, most of the investors in the country also have some issues, and to solve their issues, especially during this pandemic, to do investor aftercare, which we always paid a lot of attention, is the key to make sure to have the quick wins, because the existing investors are our strategic partners who can reinvest quickly into the project, and in a long term, of course, they are the ones with their encouragement and referee bring the other newcomers.
I'm not asking you in my last question to give advice to a new advisor. But at the same time, my question is, a person who has a brilliant background himself, how a person like Vasil Hudakis, how can we use this name? Person who became a personal advisor to Prime Minister for FDI, to make his work more efficient, more successful, and just to see a result, not tomorrow, but as you wisely mentioned, in 3 or 5 year period.
First of all, I would like to give the credit to the government and the Prime Minister who made the decision to have the advisor, proficient, expert in terms of attracting the FDI. I think the more big names and bigger names we have in Georgia is how to say, supporters or friends who will help us bringing the FDI, it's better. And this was a very good step in terms of the actions from the government side. But I definitely want to observe next few months, because usually it's the actions will tell more about the real real thinking. Emotions. Exactly, besides the emotion. First, I was really happy and pleased having the foreign investor advisor now helping the government. But in 3 months, we need to see the first results, and the first results can be achieved very slowly. To see the existing investors' issues are resolved, and those can be small, very bureaucratic issues that has been on hold or hanging, and to solve those issues, that's already a big step. And that's already a big, reveal from the business side, that they will get encouragement, and they will be even more motivated, to start doing the other activities in Georgia. That's number one. Number second, probably I would be happy to see like the areas about concentration, like which countries they would concentrate, which sectors they would concentrate, which big projects they would concentrate, because what we see, we really need now some kind of big initiatives that is coming from the state as well, of course with the involvement of the private sector, but we need to see where we are inviting the people, which sectors we are inviting, which are the large projects where we're going to see the investors coming, what as a country we are offering. We have been always using the narrative easy of doing business, but it's not enough anymore. We need to have a very strong, solid statements and be very bold, and in that sense we have to create the whole new story about our country, and in that story fighting against pandemic is the key and crucial, because we need to invite the people, because we are small country, we could easily manage the pandemic. We are now ready for the investments, we are inviting you to be in the country, and Georgia really needs to be a success story in the region.
Always pleasure hosting you in our Forbes studio nowadays. Warmest regards from Elena Kvanchilashvili, and thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
Hey guys, stay tuned, subscribe and follow us on BMG.